We've reached the final hour, the post trip on Nemo Nation. Take it away, Phone Master Dre.
That I can do, Claire Marie. Dave, Nemo, Jimmy Mac, final hour. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Dave, what would you think about if every week we actually watched one episode of WKRP in Cincinnati and spent about 10 minutes at the end of the show talking about it?
Okay.
I figured you'd be in for that. I'm introducing that new segment that will not start today. Dave, go watch the segment. No, we're going to go check that out, by the way, and we'll be kind of jumping in. I got a chance to kind of watch the first couple of episodes recently. I got to tell you, the show holds up. As a matter of fact, it was canceled stupidly. If you read the events around it, this is back when real people who didn't know anything about television entertainment didn't know how to grow a show. It's pretty darn remarkable. It's a great show. And I forgot that the man at the center of it, for all the bumpkins and idiots, Venus is actually a really good DJ, and the man who actually is the programming director is really quality. So is Lonnie Anderson. I'd forgotten how smart.
Thinking of Lonnie, we were talking about Farrah Fawcett and the Charlie's Angels this morning and all, but Lonnie Anderson, she could have been an angel.
I mean, and by the way, she is terrific in that show. And what people don't realize, remember, she won't type anything for anybody. And then they have the episode where she can type, and it's literally a blitzkrieg.
Yeah.
She knows exactly what she's doing. By the way, speaking of people who know exactly what they're doing, I was so delighted, as Teddy Roosevelt would say, when Claire Marie actually booked these guys. They're hailed often as Boston's power couple of weather. They have a community bond extending far beyond the airwaves. They host local events. They educate students about meteorology. Matt and Danielle Noyes are genuine stewards of New England spirit. And you and I have spent some extended time in New England, Dave, and we know that is a warm and welcoming spirit for some often bitter cold weather. Their shared passion for weather and community involvement has endeared them to many, making their weathercast not just informative, but a daily meeting with friends. We strive to do the same thing here at Radio Nemo and on Nemo Nation and Road Gang Radio. Matt was actually Merrimack Valley local to founding chief meteorologist for NBC Boston, over a quarter of a century in broadcasting on New England cable news. Danielle's got 15 years on Boston's meteorological scene. She brings a unique blend of expertise and community service. She has a versatile role in meteorological communication, from television to forensic meteorology and private weather consulting. As somebody who actually has a degree in meteorology, I can tell you a lot of that stuff is not just looking at screens and pointing at the flow of an occluded front, which, by the way, is often stuck just like stagflation. 1DegreeOutside.com is what they have done, and you can find all their social links at 1DegreeOutside. They are the co-founders, meteorologists of 1 Degree Outside, Inc. Matt and Danielle Noyes join us here at Nemo Nation. Good morning to you both.
Good morning to you. Wow, where do we send the check for that introduction? That was amazing. Thank you very much.
Well, the saddest part about it, and you're welcome, by the way, Matt, the saddest part is I could have kept going. That's the thing. We often have guests like yourself here where I go, you know what, if I just kept talking, the entire segment would be this remarkable bio. But it's just great to have you and Danielle here. We're thrilled to have you here. And as I don't know if Claire got a chance to tell you, I'm a big fan. I just think it's one of the most informative. It actually does a lot of what we're hoping to do here. It is both absolutely entertaining, absolutely warm and friendly, and at the same time, incredibly informative. It's not just froth. There is actually something really substantial underneath, and we're just thrilled to have you both. So that's my fan gush for you both. I just want to kind of start, Matt. I've told a little bit about y'all's origin story, but we're going to do both of you guys in order. Matt, if you could kind of tell us about your passion for weather and what it is you guys are hoping to accomplish with 1 Degree Outside. Danielle, I'll promise we will pivot immediately after he answers the question to you. All right. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I got to tell you, my love for weather began when I was really just 6 years old. Hurricane Gloria came blasting through New England, and so I remember just seeing the power of that storm. We lived in the country, and, we had a big, long driveway. My dad's apple trees split in half with the storm. Our driveway culvert washed out, so we spent days putting that back together. We lost power for over a week, and I just thought, this is incredible that nature has this much power. But what never occurred to me, so my dad was a state trooper for 35 years, right? I wanted to be a state trooper like him. That was what I wanted to be. I loved the weather. It was a hobby. It never occurred to me that I could actually make my hobby my job. And then as I got into high school, and my dad would say, look, I know this is what you've always wanted to do, but, you've got some loves and some passions, and I'd love for you to explore that for yourself too. And so that's when it occurred to me that, you know what? I could make my passion and my hobby my job. And so I went off to Cornell University, got my degree in meteorology there, and then got my first job in upstate New York, Binghamton, Syracuse, driving up and down I-81, and in between the two cities, and lake effect snow and severe thunderstorms, cut my teeth there, living above a bar in Dryden, New York, for those who know the area, and then made my way back to Boston, made the dream come true. My whole family was around here, met Danielle, and the rest is history. You know, it was an awesome TV career, but as we started to see more and more folks switching to digital, you've got less than half of folks going to local TV for weather. We said, look, these viewers in New England are the people who built us. They built our career. It's because of their support that we do what we do. And that means that if they're jumping to a new platform, the right thing for us to do is jump to a new platform as well. So it was a risk. I won't call it a gamble. It was a risk, and it's one that, thank goodness, has been paying off.
Really quickly before we pivot to Danielle, I'm looking at my father-in-law, Dave Nemo, and he is sitting here beaming from ear to ear because he knows exactly what you're talking about. We have just done the same thing. It's funny because it's true. And like I said, I told Dave, I said, these guys are a model for what a lot of people who want to make the move and actually keep what I call the basis in reality intact. A lot of people go to digital. A lot of people go on the wide world of the web, the wild west of the web, and ending up in fantasy land. You guys have kept it really grounded. Danielle, give us the same kind of background story on you. We'd love your origin story as well.
Well, kind of the same for me, just a different hurricane. So when I was little, I lived on the South Shore, south of Boston, and Hurricane Bob was coming up the coast. 1991, I said to my parents, I want to go see it. So they drove my sister and I to the beach. I saw the waves and the wind whipping in, and it was kind of from there on out that my love for weather was born. I also loved math and science. So in high school, similarly, thought, I can make this my next move. So went to UMass Lowell for college, graduated with an atmospheric science degree, and then stayed in school another 2 years, but shifted to the South, Florida State down in Tallahassee, got my master's in meteorology there, studied hurricanes, and then was lucky enough to come back home after graduation and find a job at NECN, NBC, and then Channel 4, and met Matt. And similarly, that's kind of the start of our story.
I got to tell you, I don't know if you know this, we're broadcasting from the city of New Orleans, and it's where Dave got his start in radio 55 plus years ago. We know a thing or two, guys, about hurricanes, and they are
sure do.
They are a very different entity on the northeastern seaboard than they are in the Gulf Coast. I'm not saying they're better or worse. They're never better. But it's one of those things, too. I can imagine, Danielle, when you got down here, seeing hurricanes and the difference of how they approach, the difference of what they bring. It must have been kind of eye-opening to see that the same system can be a completely different animal in a different, warmer, or a different environment in regards to coastline and geography, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, I still have so many friends that are down along the Gulf Coast that are impacted by the hurricanes every year. But ironically, the 2 years that I was down at Florida State, we had a lack of tropical activity, which no one was upset about, but I was kind of, except me, I was kind of bummed. The one tropical system that we had was a weaker storm, but we went right down to the Gulf to experience it, and it definitely is a different beast when it's rocking into the Gulf Coast from, Tallahassee or the Florida Big Bend region over towards New Orleans and the Gulf Coast states. But I was a little bummed that we didn't have as much activity.
Actually, Matt, would you do me a favor? Would you move this woman down here? Would you guys please come down here and just set up shop? If that track record continues, it'd be a lot of people who would be very, very happy, and we actually would have a national day declared in your honor, or at least a Southeast regional one. No noise since the noise has arrived. That would be just fantastic. Would be just fantastic. Matt, talk about, you already set this up really well about launching your new platform, but it's one of those things like Rodney Dangerfield and Back to School where you find yourself saying, oh, we left out a lot of things. What did you discover about the move to digital, the move to a more online presence, following where the people were? What did you discover in regards to the stuff that you didn't think about that you then had to kind of onboard rapidly to kind of give people a complete holistic sense, and talk about what it is that 1DegreeOutside.live really does in regards to comprehensiveness? Do you follow me in my ramblings?
I know, I got you exactly. And actually, you know what? I'll even take another Rodney Dangerfield quote and say, I can't get no respect. I ain't got no respect here, right? So basically, what we're talking about is From the viewership, look, we have been so floored, so flattered, and so honored because, to be very candid, when we launched this thing, we did not expect there to be a large following that comes with us. We're both really, and I mean this, we're both very humble people, even though we spent our lives on TV, go figure. But we are humble people, and we just didn't think that folks would actually really follow us in this new thing. We said, well, probably a lot of what we'll be doing will be private forecasts for organizations, and it has been. We're saving a lot of organizations a lot of money behind the scenes in the private forecasting. And then the videos, we said, well, we don't want folks to think that we've just gone away and are sand sculpting on Cape Cod somewhere, so we would like to at least still stay active. We were floored. Within the first couple of weeks, the local newspapers in Boston reached out. Multiple radio stations throughout New England reached out. We were getting interviewed all over the place. We ended up with 1.5 million independent page views just in the first month and a half that we launched the video site. That led its way to an app, which now works globally. It's 1DegreeOutside weather. You can find it on the App Store and Google Play. And so we had built this thing that really turned into something much larger and, frankly, a lot more flattering than we ever expected it to be, which is like I said, we both really view like we owe our career to the people of New England who allowed us into their homes and watched us. And then to have this number of people follow us and come with us to the point that now we can get this weather information out to them and continue to connect with them, but do it in their pocket, do it when they're on the boat, do it when they're on the road, do it when they're in a hotel room, do it no matter where they are. That is just the biggest honor. And I mean that so sincerely. So I would say one of the things that I would walk away with, that you asked the question of what it is that kind of surprised us, never to underestimate those who've supported you from day one, because, and never to undervalue those who you care about and you realize have supported you from day one. That's been the biggest thing. The only other thing I would say is a typical startup thing, which is, look, for as successful as this has been, we're still a bootstrap startup, no investors, no corporate ownership, which means that, look, we've got 3 kids. We still spend most nights staring at the ceilings and praying that we made the right choice. But that's just part of startup living too. And it's belief from folks like yourself that in having us on, thank you so much. It really just makes you feel like this was the right move. This is a great move, and the growth is going to continue.
One of the biggest influencers in the trucking sphere, Dean Croak of DAT, which, by the way, he lives in Boston. What a surprise, huh? Is that he's the one that turned me on to you guys in the first place. And when you guys first launched, Dean reached out. He goes, "You've got to check these folks out. It really is." He said, given your own love of weather, that's a whole other story. He said, given your love of weather, you're going to really dig these guys. Danielle, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, for anybody out there who is thinking about making the leap into this world, there is sometimes, even for those of us who work in this sphere, a level of discomfort many people have. They just want to do their job. They just want to talk on the mic. They just want to talk in front of the camera and present the information. They feel they have a public responsibility. You almost have to be a promotional whirling dervish. You have to be willing to make the videos and make the public appearances and go to those places. And if you're not willing to do that, it seems to some degree that it probably isn't for you, right?
You bring up a great point, Danielle. You could probably speak even more to this, right? Because, I mean, I have the, quote, luxury of being in the studio or the office 14 hours a day. You, on the other hand, are here and doing really the bulk of the lifting and raising our 3 kids, right? I mean, this is a huge balancing act on a personal level.
It's a big balancing act. I think we wear many hats right now, but to your point of just being out and about in the community as well, tomorrow kicks off our school visits. We go to schools and teach enrichment programs. Because now more than ever, it's important to get out there and educate about science and meteorology and these STEM programs. So it is a balancing act, but we love it. One of the things I just enjoy most, so brings me so much joy to be out and about and able to talk to these young kids, the next generation coming up, to kind of spark their curiosity and their love for weather too.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, when Danielle says she loves that, it's true. If you ever see her with the kids, and she'll post some video of this too, but she is in heaven when she's with the school kids and sharing love of weather. But look, there's a reality, which is, whether we like it or not, in our country, our science, technology, engineering, and math kind of education and knowledge has dropped substantially. We were once first in the world, and now we're 24th in the world, which means that our generation, all of us, on this call, right? We think that we are from the top educated science country, but we're not anymore. And so that's a big thing for us, is trying to shine light back on that, because we've seen a lot of these conspiracy theories and things that have taken off that are just not rooted in real science. And so the more we can get kids to open their mind to real science and the facts, the better our country is going to build and be.
Matt, this is Dave, and thank you so much for being with us here this morning. I've really enjoyed listening to you and Jimmy talking. And Danielle, I kind of want to maybe pull off the road and go into the weeds here for just a moment with you on STEM.
Yeah.
And because, and I'm going to draw a parallel that may not be very accurate. In the trucking world, we have operated under the same model for the last 100+ years. And now things are changing dramatically in terms of the energy, going away from gasoline and diesel into other, energy components, and then the societal pressures on trucking now. Back in the day, before the 1980s, if you were a truck driver, you were pretty much gone all the time. That was the thing. But back in the mid 80s, and my marker is when baby changing tables started appearing in men's rooms at restaurants and airports. When that happened, the father wanted to be home more. And in trucking, they modified the industry and started regionalizing the industry to get people home more often. And the whole idea about technology and the training and the education required to make a living, while all of that was going on, was being dropped by the educational system, I think. And we went into the high school is no more than 4-year prep for college, and then you get a job at Starbucks and you're good to go. Okay, now we are seeing a real push in trucking to get back to tech-type education, introducing trucking programs into high schools now. Alabama, the Alabama Trucking Association has done a remarkable job of doing this. What I'm getting at is, and Matt, you just said, we're 24th now in education. Putting the STEM programs in place, putting more emphasis on technology, technical education, getting away from that 4-year college thing. You can get a college degree in a truck now, going down the road when you think about it. When you go to these schools, what are you seeing now, in terms of how the schools are the schools shifting to more of a realistic education system?
That's a good question, and I think that to some extent the answer is yes. And at the same time, part of what you provide really, Danielle, is these enrichment programs that give that real world connection, right? Because you go with a lot of elementary schools, middle schools, and they are teaching a lot of the kind of core curriculum of what are cold fronts, what are warm fronts, or are they? You know best because you're in this classroom all the time.
It depends. It depends on the age group is what I'll say. But what I have found that is across the board, from pre-K kids, honestly, to college, is that I'm able to go in and say, okay, like you said, the real world application, and dive a little bit deeper. So they've got the curriculum, they're teaching the certain things, and that's great, but that's it. It's the surface level. If you want to dive deeper, they don't really get that. You're moving along. So it's nice to be able to go in and really, I talk about like a packed 30 to 60 minutes of weather where we're just nonstop getting these kids to understand, cold fronts, warm fronts, hurricanes, how they form, climate change, how a green screen works, the technology behind it too. So hopefully to spark all their interest in many different things.
Yeah, and with regard to the kind of real world, what Dave was talking about there, I would imagine too that what you're able to do is provide kind of that connection between, okay, they hear about climate change, but you can actually talk about, so what does that mean in terms of storm intensity, in terms of what we see with hurricanes, things of that nature?
And one of the favorite questions that I always ask the kids when I go and I say, climate change is happening. Let's raise your hand. What can we do? What are some ideas? It's very interactive. So it's kind of nice to hear their input too, and to see that, okay, whether you're a little kid in elementary school or up to through high school or college, that they have thoughts and are able to share those and kind of go back and forth and talk about that stuff together as well.
There's no question, Dave, to your point that it's a different approach now, but we have not caught up to that as a society, right? So one of the things that we do on the private forecasting side is, believe it or not, we ask our partners to go back to what they were doing previously on costs. And we're saving folks 41% on average over their previous weather providers, which are just other weather companies. And folks are floored by it. 41% is a lot of your budget. They look and they go, how are you doing that? And the answer is by applying real world things to modern technology. So rather than saying, oh, we can write a computer script that'll give you a forecast. Yeah, that's technology, but that's not real world. Real world is getting human insight and human experience and not losing that human touch, even as you advance to incorporate AI and vast new technology. So that's what we're doing differently. And that's where folks are really finding tremendous savings and applicability to their life, is instead of just going for the bottom line and saying, well, how much can we save as a company if we just have a computer crank this out? We say, no, we're going to use the computers and build the data, but we're still going to keep the human involved. And that seems to be making all the difference.
One of the things that we love about this new platform, guys, is that we are able to respond to our listeners in real time. When we broadcast on YouTube and live on YouTube and Odyssey and iHeart and all the other places. One of our regular listeners, Trucker Boson, wrote that meteorology was one of my majors at William and Mary. He then writes, my other major was marine biology. I was studying migration patterns of whales in correlation to weather pattern changes. Hope to use changes in migration to predict weather changes at sea earlier. And I got a question for you, but Dave's got one before then. Dave, fire away. What did you get?
Well, okay. Just very briefly, trucking radio began here in New Orleans with Charlie Douglas back in 1971. I was in the Army. I came back to town, joined him in 72. My point being, back in those days, when trucking radio first started on the all-night AM 50,000 watt power stations, we asked, what kind of weather information do you guys want? And here's an example. I'm in St. Louis. I'm heading to Kansas City. I'm going across I-70. I just want to know how far I can get before I hit a snow wall and can't move any further.
Right.
That was weather. Exactly. That was the weather. I don't want to know the forecast. I don't want to know anything about Chicago. I'm heading to Kansas. Okay. Now, so that was then, and trucking and the whole world was much simpler then. We thought it was complicated. We had no idea, right? So you guys, what you guys do now, and I heard you say something earlier, one of you guys said you save companies a lot of money. Nobody really put weather into the ledger, so to speak, back in those days. That's in terms of the bottom line. Boy, it's definitely on the bottom line now, right?
Yep, it absolutely is. One of the things we found, though, that still really hasn't caught up, Dave, is, what we offer is definitely premium insights, right? Like I said, we incorporate the human into this, so it's something that applies to these businesses, saves them a ton. However, a lot of businesses over the last 20 to 30 years have really started to view weather as a commodity. It's become something that you can get cheap. And, we hear the joke all the time, right? Oh, to be a meteorologist, you get to be 50% right 50% of the time and still keep your job.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that's led over to the point that now a lot of companies have said, well, we'll just pay the minimum that we need to pay for weather, and we get the minimum quality product because it's weather. So some of these companies now are being forward thinking, and we're very appreciative of that, and saying, you know what, 41% savings over my previous weather providers is a lot. I'm willing to take that chance and invest more in weather because the ROI is so much more significant.
Really quickly, guys, if you're just joining us, we're so great to have Matt and Danielle Noyes here. They have New England's first ever weather network. It's the final big building block of new things in the first 18 months push since they started, 1 Degree Outside. And you can watch on Smart TVs by opening the YouTube app and searching for 1 Degree Outside Network and choosing the live option, or anytime at 1degreeoutside.live. The other thing I was kind of curious about in regards to the approach of science in the schools, it's not just getting the facts right, but it's reminding people that we live on engine Earth, in the sense that it's all part of a machine, that a lot of people don't understand how an occluded front happens. They know what it is. They don't understand that, the more cold fronts the earlier that the state of Louisiana gets, the less chance there is of a hurricane doing any damage to the coast, because it means cooler water. And I'm wondering, in what you're seeing, Danielle, if people are really, in teaching, making what I call the mechanical connections, that it's not just understanding what a cloud is, but understanding what happens before and after that cloud forms, where people are really connecting the dots, as it were, which is the real job of, I think, weather, to help people to be able to read stuff weeks in advance to know where we might be headed. How'd I do?
You did great, and you're so right about that. I do feel like, particularly for the younger kids that I go and teach, to be able to say, okay, this is like, to your point, you see a blue line on the map. Okay, I know that's a cold front. But out of the mouths of babes, right? Some of them will raise their hand and say, well, what happens behind that? Or, well, when am I going to get a tornado, before that or after that? And these questions are awesome. And at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. You want to explain the why of why it happens. And that's what we are aiming to do too, not only when we go to visit schools, but in our videos and in our forecasting, and even in our private products too, why the weather is doing what it's doing. Another thing, and you talked about planet Earth, it comes down to the basics, right? So I always say to the kids, we have one Earth, that is it. So what are we going to do to protect it? They have all these different ideas, and I love it. But yes, it's the connection between climate, between 2-week weather patterns, between seasonal weather patterns, that help to drive our weather and the Earth.
It's so interesting, because one of the things that I'm hearing from all of you guys, right, is this concept that I always think about, which is curiosity, right? And so what drives us to move forward as a country and as a society? Curiosity about, how does this work? How can I make it better? And how can I learn to either work with it or work around it or leverage it in some way or another? And that's, I think, what we're really, when you look at everything we're doing, right? When you look at the video product that we offer to the public, and the way that we give the description and the explanation of the jet stream and how things are shifting with the polar vortex and in Siberia and how it'll affect things in America. Or when you look at Danielle's school visits and she's out in the community and talking with them and teaching them these things, or you even look at the private forecast where I'm saying we're trying to make it relatable to humans. The hope there is that all of that inspires curiosity, because we come to a point when it's so easy to search it on the internet, to use AI, to turn to social media to try and find one answer and say, well, there you go, that's the answer. That the hope here is that we can kind of at least be among the many thought leaders to get us all to start saying, well, but why does that work? And is that really how it works? And is that the end of the story, or is this just the beginning of the story? And that's our hope, is that we can fuel curiosity with more and more folks about science, and particularly around weather.
I love the fact that Matt, good Northeasterner that he is also referencing one of the great Northeasterners of American culture, in Walt Whitman, who simply said, be curious, not judgmental. Being curious is the beginning of a wonderful website, 1degreeoutside.com. We're out of time, guys. We actually went way over what we asked of you, and we appreciate you guys making time.
You.
Yeah, guys, it's where I get my weather from. It's where I get a lot of entertainment and joy. 1degreeoutside.com. You're both welcome back anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, everybody.
1degreeoutside.com.